You're listening to Unlocking Vulnerability, a podcast produced by Helen, helping you better understand consumer vulnerability. Hello, I'm Helen Pettifer and welcome to Unlocking Vulnerability. In this episode, I'm delighted to welcome my special guest, Michael Hilton, who is the director at Three Hands. Three Hands help businesses to gain first-hand insight on underserved markets and vulnerable customers and to innovate with empathy. They work with businesses to create more inclusive products, services and customer experiences driven by expertise from charities and the lived experience of their beneficiaries. Michael has been at Three Hands for 2 years, having started his career in government and then spent time working for the charity, A Blueprint for Better Business. Hello, Michael. Thanks for joining me today. It's wonderful to have you on my podcast.
It's really great to be here. Thank you.
No, you're very welcome. That's great. So, do you want to start by just giving a brief introduction to yourself?
Absolutely, yes. And just to say, I've really enjoyed the vulnerability conversations you've held over the last few months. They've been brilliant. So, to build on your introduction, essentially, I moved into this world because I just felt like there was so much that businesses could be doing to have even more of a positive impact on society. And at the same time, a real need for sort of personal and human connection to what was going on out there. So sort of bringing the two together was what energizes me and excites me, but also what Three Hands does. So how I discovered them, really. That's what we do. How can you bring the power and potential of business together with the huge insight and the expertise of charities to do good in the world?
Yeah, brilliant. And I think you're just as passionate as I am about all of this topic as well, which is always wonderful. And obviously in our conversations, we've had lots of conversations over the past few months, and you've used that phrase, the lived experience, which I wasn't familiar with actually until we first started talking. So what do you mean when you talk about the value of lived experience?
Yeah, good question. Essentially, I mean understanding things as they really are. Understanding an issue by engaging directly with the people who live it, breathe it, feel it, not through reading the news, looking at reports, even sort of speaking to experts. It's that real personal experience. And through what we do and our work, we see time and time again how much businesses and their people can learn about a particular vulnerability by talking to the people who we think understand it best, who deal with these issues every day. And it's about people from business getting out their offices and their usual world and challenging their assumptions and just really listening to people and learning from them. And maybe to give you a couple of examples to sort of bring that to life a bit. We've been in rooms hearing from former gambling addicts, talking to people from a bank about how their addiction completely transformed how they saw money and what that meant for their lives and their approach to financial services. And then having a really frank discussion with them about, well, what could the bank have done to make any difference and when might they have done that? Hugely powerful conversation. Or another example, being told by a survivor of domestic and economic abuse about how they'd been in a destructive relationship, and they deliberately tried to spoil a loan form that they were being coerced to fill in, and they thought, look, if I do this wrong, if I break the rules on how I sign this form, the bank might notice, might be able to help, or at the very least not do the loan. And hearing how the bank didn't pick up on it and didn't notice. And these hugely powerful stories, I think, just bring home what vulnerability is all about and how businesses can really make a difference.
They're powerful stories, the ones that you've just shared, really powerful examples. And of course, I've been in sort of having conversations with people as well with lived experiences, to make sure that all my courses, all the information I share in my courses is relevant, it's up to date, it's real life. That's what I think sometimes we often forget, that actually people are just out there just living these lives that sometimes we feel so far removed from.
Exactly, and it's so easy to think it's a different world, but these are people. They're our friends, yeah. They're our families, they're our customers, they're our colleagues. It's not a different world. Sometimes feel that way.
Exactly, yeah. So some powerful examples there you've just shared. What can lived experiences bring to the vulnerability agenda?
A lot, I think. Essentially, very powerful insights on a whole range of vulnerabilities that will stay with people for a very long time. So I think essentially there's two big things that it would bring. The first is, we've seen from the most recent FCA guidance, this emphasis on businesses thinking about vulnerability much earlier in the product design, service design process, being much more proactive and less reactive in how they think about vulnerability. I think to do this, that means engaging people who live these issues early and directly, and learning from them and gaining insight in that design process at a really early stage. That involvement, and we've seen it firsthand, can lead to whole new ways of thinking about issues, about the vulnerabilities associated with them. And sometimes a single insight can really transform the way a business approaches something. A really powerful opportunity, I think, to bring in lived experience very early in that process. And the beauty, of course, is designing things in such a way. You often find you design it for a particular reason, to help people with dementia or whatever, and what the result is something that's much better for everyone. There's mainstream benefits. It's easier to understand products, simpler websites, more flexible services, and suddenly everyone wants them. So there's that sort of universal design benefit there. And I think the second real opportunity is about individuals. It's about helping people understand the issues themselves, and such a powerful way to develop empathy. We've all experienced different issues in our life. For me, I had a family member who had a stroke recently. I now have so much better understanding and ability to appreciate what that means for him and for the people around him. And everyone will have these different issues. That direct interaction with people who are experiencing different things helps us understand that issue, but also help us empathize, I think, across a whole range of issues and vulnerabilities. And I mean, just as an aside, I was pretty surprised to see that FCA recent guidance seems to increasingly be talking about sympathy rather than empathy, which I was quite shocked by, because for me, they're completely different. I don't think that a vulnerable customer engaging with a financial service business is looking for sympathy at all. They're not looking for I'm really sorry to hear that about your situation. They're looking for empathy. They're looking for someone who can stand in their shoes, really understand and say, well, look, we'll do what we can to help you with this. And I just thought that was such an odd change.
Yeah, actually, that was one of the key points I took out from the guidance, actually, is that one word. And I just thought, was it a deliberate point to be made? Is there now going to be a whole topic on empathy and sympathy? So that could be something to watch in the future. So definitely a discussion maybe to have in the future. So some great points there. And I think proactivity, empathy, these really key words, aren't they? Really coming to the forefront now, that actually, we do need to be proactive. We do need to be showing empathy.
I was struck by people sometimes talk about how people in call centres are young and inexperienced, but actually, there'll be 20-year-olds in call centres who have cared for an elderly relative who are absolutely incredible at empathising with the needs of older people, and as a result of that. And so, for me, it's as much about life experience, and no one can have experienced a whole range of things. Some people have experienced more than others, but it's finding a way to bring that in to help people empathise and to help design products, services, and that just are so much better.
Whether sort of levels of empathy have increased since lockdown, really, because obviously everyone is facing some form of change, some form of challenges. So hopefully then empathy levels have significantly increased, which would be really interesting to see.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, on one issue, on loneliness and isolation, I think is a really interesting example. For the first time, everyone experienced what it was like to be confined to your home for 3 or 4 months. And for millions of people in the UK, that's a daily reality. So I think in some ways in particular, maybe it's given people a little bit of insight into what that really means.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. And obviously thinking about sort of the pandemic and the tough 6 months that we've had, it's easy to see that actually we have all been impacted in one way or another, and we're not quite out of the woods yet. I think there's going to be long-term consequences from all of this as well. So what are you hearing from charities about how COVID has changed the whole landscape, really?
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, I hope that one of the changes that really sticks is vulnerability used to sort of be an industry term that you would never mention publicly. It was sort of behind closed doors, and now the idea of that responsibility to customers who are vulnerable is mainstream. It's centre stage, and let's hope that's a change that sticks. I mean, the big thing we're hearing a lot is, I think, just how the vulnerability landscape has changed, how the people perhaps facing vulnerability, financial vulnerability this autumn, is a very different cohort to the people who might have been last January. And how, whether it's the job loss and health impacts, it's a whole different group of people who are now facing these challenges. Younger people and older people particularly been hard hit by the job loss. It's very important to not have a static view of these issues and the vulnerabilities they cause, and be really open to how much that could change. And I know that a lot of the charities helping people with financial issues and debt issues are expecting not only a wave of need coming in the autumn, but from a very, very different group of people, lots of people they've never had any interaction with before and who've never come to them. I think that's quite scary and upsetting, but also so important to understand for businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sort of collaborating with charities and organisations is going to be key, isn't it? And I think collaboration is another key word of the year as well. And that was really sort of the main focus of me putting together my vulnerability discussions, was to bring people together across all industries as well. Just we've all got the same customers, so let's actually just all get together and talk about it and see how we can support these customers. And of course the FCA talk about collaboration, especially working with charities and that in their guidance. So in your experience, how can businesses work most effectively with charities to better support vulnerable customers?
And this is something we think a lot about. All our work at Three Hands is somehow in this space between businesses and charities. So it's such an important issue. And my first point would be this isn't all about signposting. It's that classic view of, we just need to be able to, we've got a vulnerability, let's send them off to a charity where they can have some help. Yeah, maybe there's a piece in there. It's important to know where to go for that specialist support, but this is about so much more than that. It's about how can a business really learn from the expertise of a charity and the people they support to do business better, to better serve its customers. And I think that it makes a lot of sense for businesses to think about, what are the issues that really are particular to us? What are the issues that we really want to learn about? And they'll vary depending on the size and the sector of the business. But whatever that issue, there'll be charities out there who can help them understand it better. And they may not always be, I think it's important. There's some massive charities on particular issues who are very well set up to help businesses, and that's great. But there's also a whole host of other charities out there who have amazing expertise about, maybe about particular areas, particular issues, who are maybe a bit harder to engage, not so obvious, but important not to forget them and think about engaging them too. And I think it's worth saying it's not easy. That charities' purpose is not to engage businesses. They're not set up to help businesses with this. So, it needs care and time to help a charity work well with you. And it also needs a great deal of sensitivity when it comes to working with people who are opening up and are bringing their own deeply personal experiences to the table. So, that requires sensitivity and skill. A lot of businesses have that, and it's something obviously that we help with and specialize in. And I think the final thing I'd say is businesses must value this expertise. That this shouldn't come free. That just like if you were working with an expert or a consultant on any other issue, we should really value what charities bring, and that means paying them for this expertise, paying them for this insight, recognizing that value. And of course, that's a massively important revenue opportunity for charities as well at the moment.
Yeah, they've been quite hard hit this year as well, haven't they? They've missed out on a lot of fundraising opportunities.
It's a very tough time, I think, the perfect storm of being in greater need than ever, but with a lot of those classic ways of raising money just not being there for them right now. Every charity has limited resources and is very stretched. So it's how can we use their expertise and to improve the way a business operates, rather than necessarily just routing people to the charity and saying, right, this is this issue, this is for you to solve. So those points earlier about transforming the products, the services, the customer journeys, the way the business operates, rather than simply routing people somewhere else.
I mean, that brings all my questions to a close, but I mean, it's just fantastic just hearing about sort of the lived experience, and that is such a key term. And I really do hope that sort of a lot of people embrace this and actually sort of just get out there and start having conversations with the people that they're meeting. Just start sort of having that conversation. How are things impacting you? what are your daily challenges? What are your challenges when you're engaging with organizations? How can we better, engage with you? It's all about coming down to that human conversation, isn't it, really? And actually finding out where that person is at.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a fair challenge for business. You might say, well, there's loads of issues and loads of vulnerabilities. We can't everyone can't become an expert on everything. But you're right that we're all living lives and having our own experiences. We've got friends and families with all kinds of experiences. So it's partly about being curious, I think, and then for businesses to think about, well, what are the things that we really want to know about? What are the things that we think we need to put some time and effort into understanding more deeply? And it can be so powerful for if it's a group of people in a business who get into an issue, think about it differently, and then go back into the business with that attitude, that way of thinking, that insight. It doesn't have to be hundreds of people. It can be, a small core of people can really start influencing how things are developed and how the front line looks. Huge power there if we do it right.
Yeah, absolutely. And the difference it can make to people's lives as well is immense. Well, thank you so much. Are there any final thoughts that you want to share with our listeners today?
I think just that there's a real opportunity here. That I think one of the big negatives of COVID is that there are so many more people facing huge challenges out there. But at least one of the positives is people are thinking about it and really responding to it. And it feels like there's a moment now to do that really well. Not as a tick box exercise, not as a sort of we need to comply with X or Y guidance, but as a big picture of our role in society. We do this well, it's better for us, it's better for our customers, and it's a whole lot better for society out there. So yeah, let's seize this opportunity. Let's do it really well, and I think at the heart of that, let's involve the people we're ultimately trying to help.
Yeah, fantastic. And of course, there's so many people joining my discussions now as well, and this vulnerability is getting a big topic now, and I think we're really starting to make waves and move forward with getting people's voices heard. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining me today. It's been brilliant having you and you sharing your thoughts with us. So fantastic. Thank you so much. If this conversation in today's episode has raised any questions or concerns with you, please do get in touch with either Michael or me. You can email me at info@helenpettifer.com, and Michael's contact information is in the episode details. Thank you for listening to this episode of Unlocking Vulnerability. Please take care of yourself and stay safe and well. Remember to subscribe to my podcast and leave a review. You can also follow me on Twitter @hpettifertrain, and I look forward to you joining me on my next episode.